Hello everyone, and welcome to our new video. Today we are again, on the road with Fynja, the queen of our pattern games. We worked with her again on a new one, and the speciality of this new pattern game, which is called Give Me a Break, is that Fynja is really in complete control of actually what happens, during that pattern game. So there's very little communication directly, as you've seen it in the other pattern games like Look at That or Super Bowls, between Fynja and her owner. It's really Fynja who basically decides what is going to happen depending on what is going to be okay for her and what is not going to be okay for her. And how this was going, we're going to show you now. Here you can see the build-up of the Give Me a Break pattern game from Leslie McDevitt. So you basically have a place for the dog owner to sit. The dog owner moves, places a treat somewhere in the area. And the trigger for the dog owner to move and place another treat is actually Fynja coming back, to the dog owner and then triggering the action for the dog owner to move again, and place a treat somewhere else. You can see the trigger, standing still at the fence, and so far we don't see really any reaction or orientation, really from Fynja towards the trigger. She knows it's there, but I think it's clearly obvious that it's not bothering her, in any way, shape, or form. We decided when we started the game not to directly go very frontal, but actually give her the time, to actually come closer and closer with every movement. So here you could see that she, for the first time, really looked at the trigger. And so now we're starting to close in and get also closer to the fence. But you can see how quick she is actually in picking up the treat and reorienting to the dog owner. And so very difficult actually for the dog owner to come back in time, to the sitting place, which is actually exactly what you want, is the direct reorientation, of the dog, like Fynja is showing us here. So here again, there was a short, and again here, a short orientation towards the trigger. And now we're gonna start to go quite frontal, towards the trigger and close to the fence. And again here, very, very quick, look towards the trigger, almost not visible. And so we kept repeating this a few times, and this time we go really frontal, directly to the fence, in front of the trigger. And here you can see a first real orientation from Fynja towards the trigger, but again, no reaction, everything under threshold, and she turns back, to the dog owner, triggering the next placement of the treat again, going back to the fence and, taking the treat, orienting quickly to the trigger, and then turning around and actually going back with the dog owner to the sitting place. So one more time, because we wanted to see, how her orientation would actually change over time, or if it would. And essentially you can see that, with the last, placement of the treat that we just saw, there was actually no orientation towards the trigger anymore. So then we started to bring in some movement. So the trigger starts moving, and I think, as you all know, moving, is an entirely different thing for when you work with a reactive dog compared to when a trigger stands still. So we started, also here with rather low movement, if you want, but we closed into the fence actually a bit quicker than we did before. So important to note here is that there is actually a real difference to the other pattern games here, and the difference is that it is completely under Fynja's control here what is happening. She triggers the action. There is no looking back, looking forth and looking back to the owner, which is always there in the other pattern games, where Fynja actually tells the dog owner, I'm still okay, I'm still okay. So here, basically how Fynja tells the dog owner that she's okay is that she simply returns with showing no reaction. So that's why the Give Me a Break pattern game is certainly not one of the first games, to do, because it actually is requiring actually a good pre-work and also good bonding and trust level between the dog and the dog owner. So we added more distraction in terms of more movement. So you can see here some reorientation or back orientation of Fynja. And one question that I get very often is that, but the dog should smell, the other person, especially if you've done this with the same person a few times. Experience actually shows that, it may, but it doesn't really make a difference, because if the dog really gets over threshold, then the reaction is there, no matter if the person actually smells and knows the person basically or not. And you can see always from the reaction when the dog really realizes who the person is, that the behavior changes completely. So there might be some awareness, but certainly not to the point that it would actually completely overshadow, or prevent the reaction to happen, if the dog would become or would go really over threshold. So what you can see here with the more and more quicker moving trigger, that when Fynja gets very close to the trigger, here now she starts some reorientation back in there. So here 2 or 3 times, and again here to see what's happening, but she still keeps very close basically with her dog owner, and that's exactly what you want to have. And I think she is really ready for the next step in terms of real world exposure to a trigger. So here the trigger comes now without the masquerade basically, and here you can see now the difference in reaction when she actually realizes who it is. So I think that is also a little bit of a proving point of what I just said before in terms of the nose work of the dog in these situations.